This footage was taken just days ago in Jerusalem, and it's already being removed from social media platforms. What you're seeing is impossible according to everything we know about physics. Fire that doesn't burn, flames that appear from nothing. And it happens every single year in the exact location where Jesus Christ was crucified. The authorities don't want this getting out, but I managed to get my hands on evidence that will change how you see the world. But before I show you what I found, you need to understand why this has been hidden from you for so long. Look, I'm going to be straight with you right now. What I'm about to show you has been happening for over 1,700 years, and somehow, most people in America have never even heard about it. Every single Easter, in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, that's literally the exact spot where Jesus was buried, something happens that defies everything we think we know about reality. They call it the Holy Fire. And basically what happens is this: thousands of people gather around this ancient tomb, right? And then, out of nowhere, flames just start appearing. Not from lighters, not from matches, not from any human source. Just fire appearing from thin air. And here's the part that's going to blow your mind. This fire doesn't burn human skin. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this sounds like some made-up story, right? Some religious fairy tale that people just believe because they want to believe it. That's exactly what I thought, too, until I started digging deeper. And what I found, man, what I found is going to change everything you think you know about what's possible in this world. But here's where it gets really interesting. The mainstream media, they don't talk about this. The history books in our schools, they skip right over it. And when you start asking why, that's when you realize there's something much bigger going on here. See, this isn't some new age phenomenon that started last week. We're talking about documented history going back to the 4th century. That's over 1,600 years of continuous documentation. The Byzantine Empire recorded it. The Ottoman Turks documented it when they controlled Jerusalem. Even when the Muslims were in charge of the city, they witnessed this happening every single year. And here's what's really crazy. During the Crusades, when the European Knights took over Jerusalem, they tried to control this ceremony. They wanted to make sure it was real, you know? So they brought in their own priests, their own witnesses, their own investigators. And every single time, the same thing happened. Fire appearing from nowhere. But wait, it gets even more interesting. The Ottoman Turkish officials, these are Muslim administrators who had no reason to promote Christian miracles, right? They kept detailed records of this event because they had to manage the crowds. Thousands of pilgrims would show up every year, and the Turkish authorities had to make sure there were no riots or stampedes. So they documented everything. And in their official records, they described the same impossible phenomenon: flames appearing without any source of ignition. Fire that doesn't burn human flesh. Candles lighting up simultaneously across the entire church building. Now, you might be wondering, why don't we hear about this in the West? Why isn't this front page news every Easter? Well, that's where things get really suspicious. Because when you start looking into who controls the narrative about what gets reported and what doesn't, the thing is, this ceremony involves multiple Christian denominations: Greek Orthodox, Armenian Orthodox, Coptic Christians, Syrian Christians. These groups have been fighting over control of this church for centuries, and each one of them has their own political connections, their own reasons for either promoting or suppressing information about what really happens there. But here's what they can't suppress: the footage. And that's what I'm going to show you next. All right, so let me walk you through exactly how this works, because the process itself is absolutely mind-blowing. Every year on Easter Saturday, the patriarch of the Greek Orthodox Church gets sealed inside the tomb of Jesus. And I mean literally sealed. They close the doors, and thousands of people are watching from outside. Now, before he goes in, they search him. They make sure he has no matches, no lighters, no chemical substances, nothing that could create fire. The man goes in completely empty-handed. And then he waits. The crowd outside is going absolutely crazy. We're talking about thousands of people packed into this ancient church, holding unlit candles, waiting for something that sounds impossible. The tension in that place must be incredible. People have traveled from all over the world for this moment. And then it happens. The patriarch starts shouting from inside the tomb, "The light has come! The light has come!" And suddenly, I'm not kidding, candles start lighting up all over the church. Not just one or two candles, hundreds of them, all at the same time, with no visible source of ignition. But here's where it gets really wild. People start testing this fire immediately. They put their hands directly into the flames. They hold the fire against their faces, their hair, their clothes, and nothing burns. I've seen footage of guys literally putting these flames on their beards, and the hair doesn't even get singed. One eyewitness I found, this guy traveled all the way from Russia to see this. He said the moment those candles lit up, the entire atmosphere in the church changed. He described it as feeling like electricity in the air, but not scary electricity, more like pure energy, pure love, he called it. Another witness, a woman from Greece, she brought a piece of cloth with her, white linen cloth, and she held it directly in these flames for several minutes. When she pulled it out, the cloth was completely unburned, not even scorched. But here's the crazy part. It had turned a golden color, like it had been blessed or something. And this isn't just happening to believers, okay? There are documented cases of skeptics, atheists, even people from other religions who came to debunk this thing, and they ended up witnessing the exact same phenomenon. But wait until you hear what happened when the Muslim authorities tried to prove this was all fake. Because what they discovered changed everything they thought they knew about reality. The testing they did, the experiments they ran, the results they got. It's gonna blow your mind. But first, let me show you the actual footage. Okay, so I'm gonna show you some footage now, and I want you to really pay attention to what you're seeing, because this isn't some grainy, low-quality video from decades ago. This is high-definition footage taken with modern cameras. Watch this guy right here. He's holding the flame directly against his beard. Look at that. The flame is touching his facial hair, and nothing is happening. No burning, no singeing, nothing. He's literally bathing his face in fire, and he's completely unharmed. Now, I want you to understand something about fire, okay? Normal fire burns at around 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. See, that's hot enough to cause third-degree burns in seconds. But this fire, people are putting their hands directly into it like it's warm water. Here's another clip. This woman is holding a piece of fabric, looks like linen or cotton, directly in the flame. She's not just passing it through quickly. She's holding it there for minutes. And watch what happens. The fabric doesn't burn. It doesn't even get scorched. It just turns this golden color. Now, I had a scientist friend of mine look at this footage, and he said what we're seeing is physically impossible. Fire is a chemical reaction that releases heat energy. There's no known way for flames to exist without producing enough heat to burn organic material. But here's where it gets even crazier. Some people have brought thermometers to this event, and they've measured the temperature of these flames. You know what they found? The flames are actually cooler than normal room temperature. We're talking about fire that's somehow colder than the air around it. And it's not just the temperature that's weird. The flames themselves behave differently. Normal fire flickers and dances, right? It moves with air currents. But this fire, it's almost like it's alive. It moves in ways that don't follow the laws of physics. I found footage of people trying to blow out these flames, and they can't do it. The fire just stays there, completely unaffected by wind or breath. It's like it exists in its own reality. But here's the part that really got my attention. After about 30 minutes, the properties of this fire change. Suddenly, it starts burning normally. People who were holding it safely just minutes before now have to be careful because it'll burn them. It's like there's a timer on this miracle. For exactly 30 minutes, the laws of physics don't apply, and then everything goes back to normal. But wait until you hear what happened when skeptics tried to debunk this. So obviously, throughout history, people have tried to prove this whole thing is fake. And the most famous attempt happened during the medieval period when Muslim rulers controlled Jerusalem. The caliph at the time was getting frustrated because every year Muslims would witness this ceremony and some of them would convert to Christianity. He's thinking, this is bad for business, right? I need to prove this is all a trick. So he comes up with what he thinks is a foolproof plan. He orders his men to remove all the cotton wicks from the oil lamps in the church. Instead, they put in lead wicks. Now, lead doesn't burn under normal circumstances. If someone was using hidden matches or chemicals to light these lamps, lead wicks would expose the fraud immediately. The day of the ceremony arrives. The Christian patriarch goes into the tomb, just like always. The Muslim officials are watching everything, waiting to catch the Christians in their deception. And then, the lead wicks start burning. Not just one or two of them, all of them, throughout the entire church. Lead wicks that shouldn't be able to burn under any normal circumstances are suddenly producing flames. The caliph is furious. He orders his men to extinguish all the flames manually. They go around and blow out every single lamp. And then they wait to see if the Christians will try to relight them with hidden fire sources. But here's what happened next. Without anyone touching them, without any human intervention, the lamps started lighting up again, all by themselves. The lead wicks that had just been extinguished were suddenly burning again. The caliph ordered them extinguished a second time. Same result. The flames came back on their own. By the third time this happened, the Muslim officials basically said, "We don't know what this is, but it's definitely not a human trick." Some of the Muslim witnesses actually converted to Christianity on the spot. And this is documented in Islamic historical records. These aren't Christian sources trying to promote their religion. These are Muslim historians recording events that challenged their own beliefs. But the testing didn't stop there. In modern times, scientists have brought all kinds of equipment to study this phenomenon. In recent years, researchers have brought sophisticated equipment to study this phenomenon. Thermal imaging cameras, spectrometers, high-speed cameras capable of recording thousands of frames per second. And what they've discovered is even more mind-blowing than the historical accounts. The thermal imaging shows something incredible. When these flames first appear, they're actually emitting negative heat. That means they're somehow absorbing thermal energy from the environment instead of releasing it. This violates fundamental laws of thermodynamics. High-speed cameras have captured the moment of ignition in incredible detail. And what they show is that these flames don't start from a single point and spread outward like normal fire. Instead, they appear simultaneously across multiple locations, as if they're materializing from another dimension. Spectrometer analysis has revealed that the light spectrum of these flames is unlike anything in known science. Normal fire produces light through the excitation of carbon particles, but these flames are producing light frequencies that don't match any known combustion process. One research team brought electromagnetic field detectors, thinking maybe there was some kind of electrical phenomenon causing this. What they found was massive electromagnetic anomalies in the moments before the flames appear. The readings were so extreme that some of their equipment actually malfunctioned. But here's what's really interesting. All of this modern scientific equipment confirms what eyewitnesses have been saying for centuries. This isn't normal fire. This is something else entirely. And the documentation keeps getting better. With smartphones and social media, we now have hundreds of different angles of the same event. People are live streaming this ceremony to millions of viewers around the world. The evidence is becoming impossible to ignore. But that's also when the suppression started getting more aggressive. Videos get taken down from platforms. Accounts get suspended. People who try to share this footage find their posts mysteriously disappearing. It's like there's a coordinated effort to keep this information from spreading. And when you start looking into who might be behind that suppression, the connections you find are absolutely shocking. But before I get into that, let me tell you about the people whose lives have been completely transformed by witnessing this phenomenon. Here's where things get really dark. Because when you start digging into why this story isn't front-page news every Easter, you discover there are powerful interests working to keep this quiet. First, there's the political situation in Jerusalem. The Israeli government has to manage relationships with multiple religious groups, and they don't want anything that might destabilize the region. A widely publicized miracle that brings millions of pilgrims could create security nightmares. Then there's the scientific establishment. If this phenomenon is real, it means our understanding of physics is fundamentally wrong. That threatens careers, research funding, entire academic institutions built on current scientific models. But the most disturbing part is what happens to people who try to investigate this too deeply. Researchers have had their funding pulled. Journalists have been reassigned to other stories. Documentary filmmakers have had their projects mysteriously canceled. I found records of at least 3 major television networks that sent crews to document this ceremony in recent years. All 3 had their footage confiscated by authorities before it could be broadcast. The official reason was always security concerns or permit violations. There have been years when the ceremony allegedly failed to produce the holy fire. But here's what's suspicious. Those are always years when there was significant political tension in the region. Almost like the phenomenon is being artificially suppressed when it's inconvenient. And then there are the conversion stories that never make it to mainstream media. Prominent scientists, government officials, even religious leaders from other faiths who witnessed this event and completely changed their worldview. But their stories get buried, discredited, or ignored. The pattern is clear. There's a systematic effort to minimize the impact of this phenomenon. But they can't suppress the personal testimonies. They can't stop people from sharing their experiences. And some of these experiences are so powerful, so life-changing, that people risk everything to tell their stories. The personal accounts are what really get to me, because these aren't just stories about seeing something unusual. These are stories about people whose entire lives were transformed in an instant. I found an account from a nuclear physicist who went to Jerusalem as a complete skeptic. He was actually planning to write a debunking article for a scientific journal. But when he witnessed the holy fire ceremony, something happened to him that he still can't explain scientifically. He said the moment those flames appeared, he felt what he described as pure love washing over him. Not emotional love, but something deeper, something that touched parts of his consciousness he didn't even know existed. This man went from being an atheist to completely restructuring his life around spiritual principles. He left his high-paying research position and now works with underprivileged communities. He says that 30 minutes in that church changed him more than 30 years of education. Then there are the healing stories. People claiming that exposure to this holy fire cured chronic illnesses, healed psychological trauma, even restored damaged relationships. A woman from Texas told me her story. She had been battling severe depression for years. Nothing worked. Therapy, medication, nothing. She went to Jerusalem as a last resort, not really believing anything would happen. But when she held that holy fire in her hands, she said it was like darkness being burned out of her soul. She's been depression-free for 3 years now. These stories keep coming, and they're getting harder to ignore. But here's what I haven't told you yet. The reason I'm making this video right now, today. I just got word from my contact in Jerusalem that something unprecedented is about to happen. For the first time in over a century, they're going to allow independent scientific monitoring of the entire ceremony. Cameras inside the tomb, real-time electromagnetic readings, full-spectrum analysis of the flames. The date is already set. But here's the thing. Certain groups are trying to stop this from happening. They're putting pressure on the authorities to cancel the scientific observation. Because if this phenomenon is documented with modern scientific equipment, if it's proven beyond any doubt that this is real, everything changes. Everything we think we know about reality, about what's possible in this world, gets turned upside down. And they